This is Peter Hall.
My name is Josh Hall.
And we're doing a video for Dale Broom, who's running for the Redlands School District Board for Area 5. He's running against Patty Holohan, who's the vice president of the board. This video is about a comment that he made last meeting, November 4th, 2025, and then it's also going to feature comments made by Bay Hamilton, who spoke after him and referenced him. So here we go.
Welcome, Dale.
Thank you. Dale Broom from Area 1. I wanted to talk about something that's relevant to our upcoming Thanksgiving celebration, and that is the education of our students about the Pilgrims, Mayflower, and the Plymouth Colony. That is an important, integral part of American history that we teach our kids. But there's one aspect of that history that is often left out, and I would like to challenge our teachers to include this in their instruction, and that is their failed experiment in socialism. Many of you may remember that the Pilgrims were sponsored by a group of London merchants called the Merchants Adventurers of London, and their voyage across into the New World was paid for by them on the condition that the Pilgrims would be required to establish a communal-type economic system. Everyone would work for the common good, farming, hunting, cooking, cleaning, childcare, and each member would share equally in the produce. If collectivism, of course, socialism hadn't been called that at that point, was going to work, it would have worked among these very devout, moral, and generous people. The Plymouth Colony should have been a collective utopia. But problems quickly arose because of the selfish and sinful nature of all men. More and more of their members began to malinger in their work, pleading maladies and fatigue, and those who worked became frustrated with their slothful neighbors, and rancor and division ensued among the Pilgrims. The industrious became resentful of the forced redistribution of wealth, and as a result, the productivity of the colony languished for 2 years. 50% of the Pilgrims died in the first year due to starvation, harsh weather, and disease. William Bradford and his council began to examine the scriptures regarding the economy and came to the conclusion that socialism or collectivism was contrary to God's commands. The redistribution of wealth was a form of stealing. It undermined the institution of marriage and responsibility of parents to provide for their families. It was also contrary to the biblical principles of property rights and sowing and reaping. And it deprived them of their rewards to be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor, which later became enshrined into our Declaration of Independence in what is called an inalienable right, the pursuit of happiness. In the spring of 1623, William Bradford and his council changed their economy to a capitalistic economy system with equality of opportunity for each family to succeed. In the spring of 1623, each family was given an equal plot of land, and they were able to farm and supply their food for their family, and that was where it went. And if they had excess, they could sell that and trade that with their neighbors. But there was no central economic authority. As a result, the Pilgrims had tremendous harvest the next year. By fall of 1623, the colony was exporting products to England. Compassion and voluntary generosity abounded toward the infirmed as well as the less successful. So this is just a lesson I think that's very useful for us to teach our kids that socialism doesn't work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Now, as you can see from Dale's comments, he didn't say anything offensive. He didn't single anybody out. He brought up something that was very historical and very educational, has historical and educational value. He was talking about how the Pilgrims almost starved because they tried to implement a proto-communist system of economics in their colony. And the speaker after him, Bay Hamilton, took issue with that. Watch.
My child was recently attacked by another student in the classroom. The student who assaulted my child was wielding a chair. It's not the first time another student has hurt my child. It's the 5th time. 4 of the other incidents happened in the same classroom. My child is not the only one who is getting hurt like this During your tenure, the school district has been without a BCBA coordinator for months. There has been a shortage of paraprofessionals. School counselor positions have been cut. A teacher sexually assaulted a student. Several weeks ago, Steve Caperton delivered a report to the board about the increase in student violence and the shortage of staff to deal with these issues adequately. Overworked and overwhelmed by the stress of getting assaulted daily, an entire classroom of paraprofessionals recently quit. A teacher who is part of Together for Redlands told me about a student who was followed into the bathroom and stabbed by another classmate. The student assaulted was in second grade. While all of this was happening, the board spent its precious time and our taxpayer dollars debating how to protect our students from a flag. I filed a complaint with the school district and moved my child out of that classroom. I signed up for SEPTA so that I can connect with other parents who are experiencing similar challenges. Together for Redlands, we'll be speaking with district professionals this month to find out what we can do to support our teachers, our students, and our classrooms, because this is what protecting children looks like. I want you to take notice, and I want you to consider what you have been doing, because ignoring these problems so that you could all spend your energy on how to word book bans and flag bans so vaguely that it doesn't look like you're targeting queer students and erasing the literature of people of color isn't it. Providing a forum for Nazi sympathizers to spew their hatred in this room isn't it. School board candidate Dale Broom writing sexist and homophobic letters about removing gender ideology from our curriculum and introducing rebukes of socialism as a form of government into the curriculum isn't it. Trying to gut programs like Building a Generation that provides counseling to low-income families isn't it. Proudly declaring that your church has been illegally interfering in political elections on your social media account isn't it. I shouldn't have to say these words, but here we are. What are we even doing here? When did horrors like this become so commonplace that we started treating them as normal? When is the board going to start doing the work to actually protect our kids? Can we even hope at this point that you will?
Thank you, B.
So, Bay Hamilton, the one of the speakers after Dale, talked about how, like, one of his children, I don't know how many children he has, but he talks about how one of his children was attacked in like school or something. Apparently had a chair thrown at him, and yeah, if that happened, that's pretty serious, and I feel bad for him and his child. And he says it's happened before, but then he goes on about how, like, Dale Broom is promoting hateful and rhetoric against trans people, and brings up his comments about the Plymouth Rock colony trying to implement proto-communism and almost starving to death as a result, and how he shouldn't be allowed to talk about subjects like that.
And then he talks about how, like, a teacher was convicted of, like, sexually assaulted a child, but then he supports grooming children to amputate and mutilate their own genitalia, which is itself sexual assault on a child.
So anyway, if somebody is mild-mannered and non-offensive as Dale Broom is too much for people like Bay Hamilton, who's a member of an Antifa-affiliated group called Together for Redlands, which should rename themselves Transgender Redlands because they are a transgender advocacy group, then there's nothing the rest of us can say that they won't take issue with. You can be as non-offensive as possible, and they'll take issue with you if they know you are opposed to them. Thank you.